The words leave her mouth even as her body betrays them. We should stop. She says it softly, breathless, her hands already gripping the front of his coat as if letting go would cost her balance. The Duke does not answer immediately. They are half hidden in a narrow passage just off the main corridor, the stone walls still warm from the ballroom beyond. Candlelight spills unevenly from sconces, catching on gilt frames and casting long shadows that seem to breathe with them. Footsteps echo somewhere nearby. Not close. Close enough. Her pulse spikes. Someone's coming. Yes, he murmurs. She turns her head as if to listen better, and that's when he moves. Not away. Closer. His hand slides firmly to her waist, fingers splaying as he draws her back against him. Chest to chest. The heat of his body unmistakable even through layers of fabric. Then he kisses her again. Not hurried. Not desperate. Deliberate. Her protest dissolves into a sharp inhale against his mouth. The kiss deepens immediately, his control unbroken even as he ignores every sensible instinct they both possess. She presses into him despite herself. This is a terrible idea, she manages when he finally breaks the kiss just long enough for breath. Yes, he agrees calmly. And you're still. He kisses her again. This time slower. Deeper. The kind of kiss that silences argument rather than answers it. Her back meets the wall. Cool stone, a stark contrast to the heat of him. One of his hands slides up her side, fingers finding the loosened seam at her bodice where earlier restraint has already begun to fail. She gasped softly into his mouth. Footsteps sound again, closer now. We really should stop, she whispers, even as her fingers slide up his chest, finding the knot of his cravat and tugging it loose. He rests his forehead briefly against hers, breath warm, steady. If you step away, he says quietly, I will let you. That stops her. Not because she doubts him, because she knows he means it. She opens her eyes and looks at him fully in the low light. His expression is composed, eyes dark and intent, his restraint visible even now, even with her pinned between stone and muscle in desire. And if I don't? She asks. His thumb brushes along her jaw, slow enough to be maddening. Then I won't, he replies. Her heart pounds. The footsteps pass. Someone laughs nearby, oblivious. The moment remains. She leans in first. They end up in the small retiring room at the end of the corridor, the door closing behind them with a muted click that feels far louder than it is. The Duke does not lock it. He doesn't need to. The space is dim and private, lit by a single lamp and the faint glow from the ballroom bleeding through the heavy curtains. A chaise sits against one wall, untouched, while a tall mirror reflects the two of them in fractured candlelight. Her gown rumpled, his coat slightly open, both of them unmistakably altered. She exhales shakily and steps back a half pace, smoothing the front of her dress with trembling fingers. We're being reckless, she says. Yes, he agrees. And you don't care. No, he says, and then corrects himself. I care very much. She looks up at him. Then why didn't you stop? Because you didn't, he replies simply. Her throat tightens. That's unfair. It's honest, he says. She turns away, crossing her arms as if to protect herself from the intensity of his gaze. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. No, he agrees. It was supposed to be polite. She laughs once softly. You're very good at polite. Yes. And very bad at restraint, she adds. His mouth curves faintly. Only with you. That should alarm her. Instead, it sends a shiver through her. She turns back to him. This doesn't end quietly. No, he says. It never was going to. The honesty disarms her more than any pretty promise could. And yet, she says, you pulled me back when I tried to step away. Yes. When you heard someone coming. Yes. She searches his face. Why? Because you weren't leaving, he says. You were hesitating. Her breath catches. And you decided for me. No, he replies calmly. I refuse to pretend you didn't want the same thing. Silence stretches between them, thick and intimate. Her hand lifts without conscious thought, fingers brushing the open edge of his coat, then the warmth beneath. She feels him still. Not passive, not frozen, but deliberately waiting. You make it very difficult to lie, she murmurs. Yes, he says. I find it inefficient. She laughs again, breathless, and shakes her head. You're infuriating. Yes. And dangerous. He tilts his head slightly. Only if you stay. She doesn't answer. She steps closer instead. The second kiss is different. Less collision. More decision. Her hands slide up his chest, fingers settling at his shoulders as if they've always belonged there. His arms come around her more fully now, one hand firm at her lower back, the other sliding up to cradle her neck, thumb brushing lightly beneath her ear. The contact makes her knees weak. She breaks the kiss just long enough to whisper, "You're undoing everything." "Yes," he says softly. "And you don't regret it." "No." Her gown shifts as he pulls her closer, fabric whispering against stone and silk. One of the earlier loosened ties slips further, bearing her shoulder fully now, pale skin catching the low light. He notices. Of course he does. His breath hitches just slightly. He does not immediately touch the exposed skin. That restraint feels more intimate than anything else. "You're very aware of yourself," she says. "Yes." "And you're choosing not to stop." "Yes." She closes her eyes, resting her forehead briefly against his chest. "This is where things stop being deniable," she murmurs. "They already have," he replies. She opens her eyes again. "You're sure?" "Yes." "And if tomorrow this costs me something?" His grip tightens fractionally. "Then it will cost me more," he says. That stills her. She looks up at him, searching for exaggeration. Finds none. "You don't make empty declarations," she says quietly. "No." "And you don't kiss people you don't intend to stand beside." "No." Her fingers curl into his coat again. "Then stop being careful," she whispers. Something darkens in his gaze. Not hunger alone but resolve. He bends his head and kisses her once more, deeper than before, his hand sliding from her neck down to the curve of her shoulder, thumb brushing bare skin with deliberate slowness. She inhales sharply against his mouth. The knot comes suddenly. Firm. Controlled. "Your Grace," a voice calls from the corridor. "The Duchess is asking for you." Her heart leaps. She pulls back instinctively this time, breath ragged, eyes wide. He does not release her immediately. He leans close, lips brushing her ear as he speaks quietly. "You can step away now," he says. "Or you can stand beside me when I open that door." The implication settles heavy and undeniable. She swallows. This is the moment. Not the kisses. Not the closed door. This. She straightens her gown as best she can, smoothing fabric, lifting her chin. The loosened shoulder remains bare. Impossible to ignore. She meets his gaze. "I'm not stepping away," she says. Something like approval flickers in his eyes. He opens the door. The corridor is lined with quiet expectation. The Duchess stands at the far end, gaze sharp, already assessing what she sees. The disordered gown, the flushed cheeks, the Duke standing just close enough to be unmistakable. Her eyes flick briefly to the bare shoulder, then back to her face. "Well," the Duchess says coolly. "I see we interrupted something." The Duke does not move away from her. "No," he says evenly. "You observed it." The silence that follows is profound. She feels the weight of the house settle around them. This is no longer private. This is no longer hypothetical. And as the Duchess's gaze lingers on her, measuring, calculating, she understands something with startling clarity. When she whispered we should stop, she wasn't asking him. She was testing herself. And she didn't. The corridor seems to narrow as the Duchess approaches. Not because the space changes, but because attention does. She feels it sharpen. The way eyes do when something unspoken has just been spoken aloud without words. The loosened shoulder of her gown cools in the draft. A small, undeniable truth that cannot be smoothed away. The Duke does not step back. That matters. The Duchess stops a few paces away, her gaze moving with deliberate slowness, from her flushed cheeks to the disordered fabric, to the Duke's open coat and loosened cravat. Then she looks at her son. "You dismissed half the room," the Duchess says calmly. "For this?" "Yes," the Duke replies. "No epalayi. No deflection. Just certainty." The Duchess's brow lifts slightly. "And you intend to stand by that?" "I already am." Silence stretches. Servants have stilled. The house itself seems to listen. The Duchess turns her gaze back to her. This time not sharp, but appraising in a different way. Less judgment. More measure. You were asked to stop, the Duchess says. She swallows, then answers honestly. Yes. And you did not. No. The Duchess studies her a moment longer. Then nods once. Good, she says. I dislike hesitation more than impropriety. The Duke's hand shifts just slightly at the small of her back. Not claiming. Anchoring. Finish the evening. The Duchess continues. Together. It is not a request. She feels the Duke's breath near her ear. You may still leave, he murmurs. I will not think less of you. She turns her head just enough to meet his gaze. I know, she says. That's why I'm staying. Something settles between them then, quiet, irrevocable. They return to the ballroom. Not arm in arm. Not defiantly. Simply together. The room absorbs it instantly. Conversation stutters, then resumes, changed. Glances linger. Assumptions crystallize. Whatever uncertainty existed before is gone. She feels it, not as pressure but as clarity. The Duke does not keep her at his side the entire time. He speaks with others. Moves through the room. But he always returns. Always. When he does not touch her unnecessarily. Just close enough. Always close enough. Later on the terrace, the night air cools the heat still thrumming beneath her skin. Lanterns glow along the stone balustrade. And the sounds of the ball soften into a distant hum. You didn't retreat, he says quietly. No. You didn't rush either. No. He studies her profile. You chose. Yes. A faint smile touches his mouth, not triumph. Respect. I should warn you, he says. The morning will not be gentle. She exhales softly. I didn't expect it to be. And yet, he continues, if you wish to step back tomorrow, I won't, she says. He stops walking, turns to face her fully. Be certain, he says. I don't offer this lightly. She meets his gaze without wavering. I didn't stay because I was caught, she says. I stayed because I didn't want to pretend this was smaller than it is. Silence. Then he nods once. That, he says, is all I needed to hear. They do not return to the ball. Instead, he leads her, without announcement, without hurry, through a side corridor and up a quieter staircase. No servants follow. No doors are locked behind them. The chamber he brings her to is not the retiring room from before, but a sitting room warmed by low firelight and quiet intention. He closes the door. Not sharply. Deliberately. This time when he steps closer she does not wait. Her hands rise to his coat, fingers finding the loosened cravat and sliding beneath it, resting against the warmth at his throat. He inhales a slow, steady breath, and places his hands at her waist, thumbs brushing the line where her gown has shifted. This isn't hiding, she murmurs. No, he agrees. It's acknowledgement. She leans in and the kiss they share now is unhurried, certain, no longer testing. When they part, it's only to rest their foreheads together, breathing in the quiet they've earned. Tomorrow, she says softly, they'll all know. Yes. And they'll assume things. Yes. She smiles faintly. Let them. He lifts her chin just enough to look at her. I don't protect rumors, he says. I stand behind choices. She nods. Good. Because this was one. Morning brings no scandal. Only acceptance. At breakfast, the Duchess greets her with composed warmth. Nointerigastjen. Nokerexjen. The place beside the Duke is simply hers. Later, as sunlight spills across the terrace where the night before had burned so bright, she stands with him again. You kissed me when I said we should stop, she says quietly. Yes. And you didn't let me fix my dress when someone knocked. No.